Alrighty, today we're going to jump into Google, so let's go. Now, Google itself is on kind of its own planet when it comes to documentation because it's so clean. Like, just, yeah. And a lot of style guides are based off of Google style guides. Um, Again, similar to Amazon, I've worked with a few Google tech writers in the past, just on like open source projects or within like the Write the Docs community, and they're just so good at what they do. They're such a passionate group of people. They're so good at what they do. They really love documentation, and they make sure that the documentation is clear, concise, and just really beneficial. And if you think like Google is one of the biggest companies in the world, if not the biggest company in the world. So especially when it comes to documentation, you want to make sure that it's clear and able to be utilized all different types of education levels, technology levels, just even like English level in general. Like obviously they do localize, but a lot of people would maybe you use English in work, right? So a lot of stuff's going to be default to English. Yeah, just overall, just incredible style guides. I'm really excited to break through this one. Like even just scrolling through as I'm talking right now. They even have this, I think we've talked about like the UI feature wherever you're saying, oh, you need to go to this particular part of your interface. And then they just have it as a button. So when I click on it, it opens up another tab. It doesn't take me away from what I'm currently working on, but it does take me away. It allows me to be able to work side by side. So I could open up that another window rather than tab and work through this step by step. And the actual interface being a button just makes it more, and it pops out more as well. So they have that for every section too. They have that for, yeah. It just seems like something that they're doing consistently. Great use of a table. I love a good table, especially when there's a lot of documentation to go through, and maybe it's just easier for the person to kind of figure out how to navigate. I mean, it doesn't take place for like navigation in itself, right, or a good search tool, but especially in the Getting Started guide, which is this Getting Started? Yeah, or get support from billing, right? So from like an initial document, then it makes sense to do a table. Let's actually see if they have it Getting Started. Ooh, checklists. Yeah, I want to use a checklist. Pretty. Also, really great is they have the feedback up at the top right corner rather than the bottom. I know a lot of platforms default the feedback all the way down at the bottom of the page. I wonder if they have, which they do have as well. That's great. But I just love that they have it on top as well because sometimes people just don't go to the bottom of the page, right? They interact with the content where they need to, and they just never scroll to the bottom. So it's actually a really good idea to have it on the top to make sure that you get that feedback as soon as the person lands on the page, or they remember that it's at the top of the page before they leave your site. I always love a good checklist as well because it makes you feel like you're closer to the end of what you need to do. Checklisters, you could think that something needs to happen, which or your user could think that something's going to happen if they check all the boxes. So if you use some type of setup in a tool or a platform like Intercom or Zendesk, when nothing happens after all check boxes happen, it's kind of difficult. I know like a lot like LMSs are a place where you could set up a checklist that actually has a benefit at the end, whether they get a badge or kind of gamify it. But even so, if you're using a checklist within documentation, it still kind of helps them work through their pages if there's ways for you to make sure, maybe even by using cookies to save what they've checked. But yeah, like if I'm just going through this list and I know that I'm 4 out of the 6 steps through all this content, um, I I think it's just a better user experience in general. What happens if I do all 6? Anything? See, it would be cool, which I tried setting up before, but it didn't work with Zendesk. Is if you have after like 6 check boxes are checked, whatever page you're working on, if you have some type of like confetti cannon or something, that'd be cute, right? Okay, cool. So like within, see, it does remember my check, so it just came back from a different page. But when I clicked on this button, it sent me to just for me to log into Google Cloud, and then I guess it would be almost like a hand-holding tool, maybe something similar to like a Pendo or an app queues, really, that would guide me through. So it's great that you kind of can start that within the documentation. So that maybe I want to do a hand-holding experience rather than reading. Beautiful steps. Love that. Just see what I'm saying? Like just different CSS just kind of makes it so much nicer to realize that you're onto the next like section of a step. They do have steps within sections, so it does get a bit heavy, but being a getting started guide or checklist, I think that's okay for this instance. If it was an article specifically about creating a test support case, I wouldn't want there to be sections, right? Because I don't want it to be too intense for the user to go through for the first time. But the fact that it's a guide, I think that's totally fine. Another icon within the writing so we know that it's within the tool. What next section? Needed. Always needed, especially for getting started sections and just getting guides in general. It's great if you have a getting started guide or you have an initial documentation that you send to your user, but having that next step allows them to see what options they have. A lot of times people will finish an article and they'll try to use the navigation on the side or they'll do a search and say, oh, I want to do this instead. But having that what next allows them to see what's possible, not just what's next. And that's really important because sometimes people don't know what they should do next. And even if you feel like in the content, you've made it really clear of what they should be doing next after they achieve their goal, giving them a couple options is always a great practice because this is where you want your users to go because you know if they go in this direction, they'll be the most successful. So always, I love a good one next section. We'll see. Let's put a best practices page look like. Yeah. I mean, just the style guide on this, unreal. It's so pretty. So pretty. If I had to pick something that is not pretty, it's just the amount there is. But again, when you're working with Google, you're working with a really high technical tool. Obviously, they have products that aren't super um, scary when it comes to like API or technical documentation, but most of their products are going to be focused on that. You have like GTM, Google Cloud, you have Google Sites. There's so much in their product line that would require them to have difficult documentation. So I understand why there's so much here and then there's the sections over here and over there. But if I was going to be picky, I would try to limit maybe the top area, the sides, or even the bottom to make it a little less intimidating. Otherwise, I mean, you just can't go wrong. You can't go wrong.